ENT. We'll do it. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Our third speaker is Joey Trappey. He'll be here. He had to grab his daughter from school. He said he'd be just a few minutes late. I'm sure we can manage without him until he gets here. My name is Brand. Come on in. Make sure you sign in for me. My name is Brandon Rascata. I'm the director of Rec Services. I also am a part of a committee, ties with ULM Guys. And quickly background, ties with ULM Guys is an initiative Dr. Fields started, I guess, about 18 months ago. And we are doing some things along with our strategic plan to kind of further student development. And this is a place where we encourage all students, not just guys, to come in to learn about a few things. We have revamped this fall, and we are focusing on 3 components of development, which are an academic component, a leadership component, and a civic engagement, post-graduation component. But you don't have to wait to graduate to engage civically, but we try to bring our speakers based on those 3 components. Our committee consists of myself, Chris Williams, the director of student development, and Joel Sinclair. And I don't know what your title is now. I know it's
coordinator of student activities.
He's moved. They moved titles around a little bit. And then Michael Ricker, he is the director of career development.
Like a series Muhammad on tiles, just all over.
There he is. There he is. But we also have Eric Burton, who's in recruiting, and Ahmad, who's also in recruiting. They are always recruiting, so they're never here. But they do help us behind the scenes for sure. And we certainly appreciate their input. At this time, I will turn it over to Joel to introduce our first speaker.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad y'all can join us in person as well as our folks on Zoom. I will be introducing Dr. McEacharn. She is our current College of Business and Social Sciences Dean. A little background on Dr. McEacharn. Earned her Bachelor's of Business Administration and Master's of Business Administration from right here at ULM, and then earned her Doctor of Business Administration from Louisiana Tech. She's a certified public accountant, certified internal auditor, and chartered global management accountant. She is the first female dean of the College of Business and Social Sciences. Woo, huge accomplishment on that end. And she has served in the ULM accounting program since 1989, beginning as an instructor and then progression into an assistant professor role, associate professor, and a full professor in 2003. Dr. McEacharn is the Susan and William D. Banowski Endowed Chair and Professor of Accounting in the William D. Hoover School of Accounting, Financial and Information Services, right here in the College of Business and Social Sciences. So without further ado, for our academic portion of today's session, Dr. McEacharn, whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you all for having me here today. I'm very excited to be here. Of course, to talk about academics is part of my passion. So I have that accounting to my toes, but really this is where I'm supposed to be, is not only at this table, but here at this university and in front of that classroom. So I enjoy that very much. I want to talk to you a little bit about making sure you stay engaged in the academic side of the university. It's easy to get sidetracked sometimes from the academic piece. And what I mean by that is that connection to your program, to your faculty, to your leaders, to your mentors, to your college, to all of that that's taken place that you're a part of. I'm going to tell you a little funny story that one of my professors helped me with. And that was just learning how to argue. It wasn't anything to do with debits and credits and financial statements or anything. My professors taught me how to say, this is my position and this is why it's right. This is why I believe it. This is the way I need to go with it. So much so that I remember not long after that class, I had an argument with my husband, and he said, I don't like this new you. You know how to argue too well. You can state your case too much. You know, you're like, you're showing where I'm wrong in my thinking. And I think that was part of that because of that that interaction in the class. That professor's teaching me more than just that knowledge that I need to do to be successful. He's teaching me how to be the person I need to be successful. I don't mean arguing like fighting. I mean like staying in that position and sticking to it and knowing when you're right and that you've got a basis for it. That look, this is the thought that went into it. This is the way we need to go. Of course, I also have to argue about the academic piece to it and the engagement with your professors, because to me, I won't say 100%, but for the most part, every one of us is here because we care about every one of you. Your success is what's important to us. Us seeing what you become and what you do is important to us. I love being out there in the community, so I've got the civic engagement as well, and the leadership piece too. I love being out there and seeing how successful my students, these are my students, what they've done, what they've become, what they've accomplished, who they are, how they've grown. All of that's just, it's a wonderful piece for us. It's just super nice to see that part to it. I want to encourage you to be connected with your faculty, to use them, to get connected with them. They will help you on the other pieces, which is the civic engagement and the leadership piece. What they're going to do is push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone. They're going to get you connected to some of that community that you need to get connected to, your profession, whatever that happens to be. As you get those connections, those networking opportunities, you start dealing with other people that's in these fields that you're interested in, then you're going to start engaging in activities. And you know what? That's going to build that leadership skill. That's going to come naturally as a result of that. I won the Best Citizen Award in high school in my class. You know why? Because I never said a word. Never said a word to anybody, ever. I never thought I would be in this position. It took people and faculty and teachers who helped me get here, to train me, to put me in those situations. I took the first speech communication right here at ULM NLU at the time. And you have to do 5 public speeches, right? And the first one I'm throwing up a week ahead of time before I gave my first speech. Y'all think I'm joking and exaggerating. I'm not. I was throwing up literally a week ahead. I was so nervous about it. And now I'm sitting in a room full of people and everybody's looking at me and I'm talking. You know, it takes some training, but it takes you being willing to be a part of it in order to make it happen. And then next thing you know, you're going to take that next step, and then you're going to take that next step, and then you're going to be sitting in front of people, and you're going to be standing there, and people are going to be looking to you for what direction do we need to go? How are we going to get there? And it just happens that way. So stay with it. I can talk a lot more. I'll turn it over to others, so unless you want to come back to me.
But we're going to have some questions and answers a little bit later, so I'm sure somebody will come back to you for sure. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Williams to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Chester Johnson.
How's everybody doing? I have the pleasure of introducing somebody super duper important. Of course, we're all important, but every time I introduce somebody, they're way more important. But I'm doing the leadership component and the importance of mental health and how that affects leadership for students in today's climate. Mr. Chester Johnson here, he received his bachelor's from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, ULL, we won't say UL here, and behavior sciences. And then he received his master's in professional counseling from Grand Canyon University, a little under 10 years of experience in the field. He's a part of the self-development, counseling, and special accommodations team. I want to make sure I got that full title right. As the mental health specialist with athletics, he's also superior as a specialist in marriage and family therapy, as well as mental trauma. All right. So I give to y'all Mr. Chester Johnson.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for the invite. I had been seeing you guys doing this, but just so busy, couldn't make it. And when I got the email, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna clip my schedule. So it's pretty cool to be here. The question that you proposed to me was leadership and how to connect it with mental health.
Yes, sir.
And I thought, man, that's good. I hadn't really heard that question before. Like, I've been doing this like 9, 10 years, and mental health leadership, nobody has really brought it to me like that. So I thought about it and I was like, well, you have to know who you are if you're gonna be a leader. Okay? So the first thing that came to my mind was emotional intelligence. So I got a definition because you hear that and it's like, hey, what is that? So the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. And that's within yourself, right? You need to be able to do these things if you're going to be a successful leader in whatever field. It could be on a team, it could be at a workplace, or even in your family, right? So then the next thing I thought about was self-awareness, which is close to emotional intelligence, but I got another definition just to be clear. Having conscious understanding of your character, your behaviors, motives, and how things impact your leadership abilities. And I think that made me think about, I think that it's important, of course, I do mental health. Everybody should see a therapist, mental health coach, business coach, leadership coach, at least twice a year. Just the same way we go to the doctor, right? Like to just go and check up, where am I at today, so I can be my best self for everybody else and all the other places that I have to interact with. And I put down, study yourself. Like you have to get with a non-biased person who can show you, you know, things that you, look, when people come to me, I always will say something and they'll be like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Right, that's what we need you to do, right? We need you to think how you never thought before. So implementing some sort of mental health professional or some type of business coach will connect the mental health component to leadership. If you are a leader today, I was thinking you have to be vulnerable with your team, whoever you're working with. I mean, we've all had bosses and supervisors, and I think that role is taught a certain way, either through shows or what we've learned through people who are, you know, our leaders or supervisors in the past. And I think it's like I'm gonna stand off back here and give orders type of thing. And I don't want to let you know like who I am as a person. And I think that's not the greatest approach as a leader, right? I need you to know who I am. And the human side of me is what I was thinking about, because that's important because we're all humans, right? And we'll see our leader, supervisor as superior. And I think that's not the greatest thing because we're all humans. So we need to be on the same level. Put down showing your authentic parts to your team. How I thought about how does mental health affect the workplace? So I just came up with a few things, like you could have someone that gives unrealistic deadlines, excessive workloads, something I hear about all the time when people come to see me, I got too much work to do, longer hours. Me and my wife was talking about something like with teachers. As a teacher, and you speak to this, Dr. Professor, it's like the weekends, it's like extra hours to work. Like there's a thing in teaching where it's like, well, you don't have time to do that right now, where you do have the weekend. But those are my off days, right? So that can affect mental health in the workplace. I said leaders set the tone for the workplace. And so if the leaders set the tone, they also set the tone for the mental health in the workplace. Right? I put down ways that we can help leaders deal with mental health in the workplace. And the first thing is normalizing mental health. Past 2 years, mental health has been a big topic with COVID happening, the pandemic, and going to Zoom and doing those type of things. But we still need to open up those doors in our environments in the workplace. And I said, how do you do that? Be vulnerable. I spoke to that. We have to model healthy behaviors. If I'm the supervisor and leader, and I'm talking to my team, and I'm telling them when I go home, man, I'm working till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, or blah, blah, blah. As someone who's under you, if I'm not doing that sort of thing, then it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough, maybe. So that's something to watch. Model healthy behaviors, check-ins. I think it's important to do check-ins with your team to evaluate stress levels, even if you just stop there. Like, you can call people in and say, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Mental health training for staff. So bringing in people to talk about mental health is normalizing mental health in the workplace. And I mean, we can talk about various different things. What I do, marriage and family. So you can have someone come in and just talk about marriage and family topics, or trauma, or anything that pertains to human beings. And then I thought about a few resource suggestions. So I mentioned leaders have to have a professional mental health professional or a business or a leadership coach. They have people now who specifically do leadership coaching or like business coaching. And I thought about 3 books. Dare to Lead by Brené Brown, who's a professor. Emotional Intelligence for the Modern Leader by Chris Connors, and Emotional Intelligence by Dr. David Walton. I'm big on reading books because I give reading books the credit for me being here today. If that makes sense, right? Before, 10, 11 years ago, I didn't read much, but since I've read several books, and they shape and mold you to be who you are. So yeah, that's what.
Well, thank you. Great. I'll be introducing the next speaker. Next speaker I'd like to introduce is a ULM graduate, former ULM football player. I think he dabbled in a little bit of basketball his first couple of years.
One year.
We were in school at the same time. That's he's obviously, everybody in this room has probably eaten at one of his restaurants. I know that he is a big time supporter of ULM, ULM athletics, and ULM as a whole. Obviously an entrepreneur, and remains engaged with his university. My brother-in-law, and I'll give you a quick story. My brother-in-law's from South Louisiana, just like Joey. And so it's hard when we get South Louisiana people to stick around Monroe.
Yeah.
So we certainly appreciate him sticking around. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joey Trappey.
I appreciate you guys having me. I'll be honest with you. I had no idea that this was even going on until Brandon hit me up. And my wife and I turned 40 2 weeks apart. So we just got back from the Bahamas yesterday. So I'm still a little fuzzy, if that makes sense. But I think what Brandon had wanted me to talk about was what civic engagement.
Civic engagement, kind of post-graduation, staying involved with
Yeah,
ULM.
and I thought about that for a few days and just like, man, like what do you like? What a broad subject, right? But I think in this town, now you talking about a guy who left New Iberia, Louisiana, with just wanting to play football. Like I probably couldn't even pick Monroe out on a map in 2001, and I get dropped off here, and my story is my story, and I ended up staying and married a girl from here, and everything worked out for me. But as I slowly look back, I'm 40 years old now, and I'm 20 years out of college. I'm just kind of like, wow, how did this happen so fast? But like, man, we have a lot of opportunity in Monroe, and there's a lot of different opportunities to be involved civically. And I think the one word that just kept coming back to me as I thought about what I was going to talk about is just pride. And it's like, you want to talk about going back home and being that you went to Lafayette, like that town has a ton of pride. Like on Fridays, everybody wears red, Baton Rouge, purple. Like we have an opportunity to take a lot of pride in our community. And it's something I think we struggle with with going from NLU to ULM and then changing from Indian to War, like we've had a lot of different hurdles there. But you know, with CenturyLink pretty much removing themselves out, ULM is what we have in Monroe. So like I think we have to find a way to get involved in multiple different avenues of getting out and spreading maroon and gold, spreading ULM's positive. I mean, like just something like what we have going on here. There's probably so many people that don't even know they can log in and listen to. I mean, like the 3 minutes he just talked, I'm sitting there. I've you know multiple restaurants, housing in West Texas, and I'm listening to some of his topics. I'm like, wow, like I needed to hear that probably more than anybody else in this room or anybody listening. So like that, what we have going on and is little steps to encourage civic engagement across a bunch of different avenues. And I can't stress it enough, especially in our youth. You know, and I'm speaking to youth that like, as if I'm old, but like I'm 40. There's a gap of, you know, 20 to 30-year-olds fresh out of college that we've got to find a way to get them way more involved than what we are. Because I know there was a gap when I left college that like you graduated and it was over with. Like that was a previous chapter. Well, that's really the beginning of when you can start doing things outside to really take the university to other levels, or just creating, you know, other avenues for other people. Because I mean, this university provides a lot of opportunity on a different, you know, level of, I mean, we can go down so many different rabbit holes about how many like little gems that ULM offers, but you know, being strategically placed in Monroe, like I just see a ton of opportunity, you know, that if we just continue to do things like this and continue to push certain agendas, that we can really expand our dot on the map, I guess is a good way to put it. But you know, when you just talk about civic, I mean, there's just so many different ways. You know, what we've done at the intramural facility, I'll talk about that just because it directly affects me as a restaurant. Like the amount of monies that y'all put into the turf to fields to encourage outside economic dollars. It's all about the dollar circulating. And I refer to the fair a lot. Like the fair is not a bad deal. The problem with the fair is that $350,000 of our money is put into it and then it leaves the town. Like we have to come up with certain civic engagements. I don't care if it's downtown art crawls or, you know, the fact that we had pep rallies downtown, like that's huge. It might not have been a ginormous economic driver that day, but it encourages people to get out and move and circulate and spend money within our community. I think we have to find ways to keep our alumni still engaged, like still coming back to Monroe, you know, finding other creative ways to get them to be involved. I don't care if it's other organizations or communities, you know, like that bring outside money back in. But in Monroe, I do know economic impacts from other communities besides Monroe, getting money to come in from Mississippi, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama. Like that's how Monroe and ULM can grow. So, you know, I have 3 restaurants in this town, and, you know, I have every reason to encourage everybody to be engaged to the max that they can be, because I benefit directly when Monroe and ULM does well. But I think, and I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole, there's just so many different things I can talk about, but like, let's just talk about our campus. Like how great does our campus look? I mean, like we've made some serious contributions and commitments to buildings, and, you know, just you drive through, our landscape looks great, it's tight. I mean, like that's the little things that I've just noticed that encourage people to want to give back to ULM and support ULM. So my advice to the youth is just find a way to get involved and find a way to get other people to get involved. Because with everybody chipping in every different direction, I think that's what ultimately make ULM win.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to, about 10-minute question and answer session with our speakers from our conglomerate, our students. That's gonna be moderated by Avi Walia. He's been kind of our student rep on our committee, and he's done a fantastic job. He actually suggested Chester come speak. He has been wanting to hear you speak, I guess, for a while. I'm glad he did. And on the back end of that, I made him tell me why he wanted to hear. Says, as again, our program is being built to, develop our students, even our student members. So without me talking anymore, go ahead, Avi, take it away.
Before I open the floor to our students with asking general questions, I do have questions tailored specifically to each of our distinguished speakers. So, McEacharn, I hope I didn't mispronounce your last name.
It's close.
I know that often we're told to engage with our professors, but I wonder what tactics you suggest that students can take to increase that enhancement engagement with their professors.
That's an excellent question, the practicality of it. So I always like that. I think just walking up to them after class, if at all possible, and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm in your class. I'm this so-and-so major, I'm doing this, and this is why I have to take the class. And I just wanted to introduce myself. And that's the first step, is just making that connection. And then the next one, never be afraid to ask a question in class, outside of class, whichever it is. And then saying, all right, I am this major, or I am in this field, or I am in this discipline, and I could really use some guidance in terms of what you think I should do to help me better prepare for this. Am I portraying the characteristics I need to portray in class that would help me be successful in wherever you're going to go? I don't care if it's nursing, I don't care if it's pharmacy, accounting, or social work, or whichever one it is. What can I do? Do you have any contacts? Do you know anyone that I could reach out to make some connections with people in my disciplines? So I think the biggest is just conversation, just open the conversation.
So my follow-up question to that is, I think oftentimes a lot of my peers have this angst or fear with speaking in public. So what tactics did you employ to overcome this fear?
That's an excellent question too, so that I didn't throw up every time I started to speak.
Right.
Yeah. All right, every one of you, I want you to listen to me. Whenever you are speaking, like I'm up here speaking, none of you are worried about me at all. You aren't. You're just glad you're not the one having to speak, right? You're all kind of in your own place right now. You're not thinking about me. And when I finally figured that out, that it's not really about me, then it opened it up to where I could just talk and I could just say what I needed to say, or perform whatever I needed to do, or go into whatever conversation it is. I think it's getting into that realm that it's not all of you are worried about me at all. So
Thank you so much. Mr. Johnson, I do have a question for you. So the stigma of mental health still exists. What steps do you think can be implemented at ULM, or in particular students themselves, to minimize the stigmatization of mental health?
Education about what mental health is. Mental health, I thought about that, I didn't write it down, but what is mental health? Like, we hear that every day pretty much now, but what is that, right? Like, I didn't know what that was before I got into this field. Simply put, what is mental health? You need to educate yourself on mental health because of the stigma, because we feel this way on the inside. It's your thoughts. It's your behaviors from your thoughts. Then after we behave a certain way, we have an emotion about it. We also have emotions about our thoughts. So it's the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that we experience. That's mental health. Is that like, should that be like a thing that's stigmatized, right? Like, we all have these things, right? When we realize what it is, mental health, then it's like, I think that would help.
Thank you. And then my follow-up question to that is, in particular with leaders, what would you say they could do to enhance their self-awareness?
Oh, you gotta go talk to somebody. Period. I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for like 9 years now. And it shocks me so much when I meet other therapists who don't do therapy for themselves. Oh, and well, I'll bring that up like, hey, you do therapy, or somehow we get around that conversation. And it'll almost like shock them that I asked them that. Like, what do you mean, do I do therapy? I'm a therapist. You're still a human being, aren't you? Like, and how can you, I don't know how they do it. Look, I cannot sit there and deal with what you're bringing to me if I don't have my own stuff in order. So I think that goes the same way with any leader. You need to have your own home in order before you can go and tell me about mine. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Trappey, I, as a former student athlete, I'm very curious to kind of ask this question and pose it to you. How do you transition from that student athlete life to being an entrepreneur, and why did you pick entrepreneurship over working for a company?
Well, that's a good question. You loaded with good questions today. Like he was saying, like I was a 3-year captain. I walked onto the football team, earned a scholarship, and then was voted a team captain my sophomore year, which is rather odd. Typically it's a senior or junior sometimes, but a sophomore, that's a big role to take on. So I think I've always, I mean, I played 5 years of football, and then I played 1 year of basketball because I just couldn't like just competing, was always driven into me. I did teach at OCS for 1 year out of college, and but it was because I was able to coach to fulfill that competitive drive. And then, I mean, you want to talk about getting the competitive spirit, you jump into the restaurant business at 25, partner, you better figure it out. Like that'll get you going. Now I'm competing to serve 100 cheeseburgers a day, so like it's always been just a competitive mindset of just winning, but I think it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. Like if you just wake up and you decide you want to win today, no matter what field you're in, I think you either have that trait or you don't. Like I'm a big believer that like winners win and losers lose. Everybody's heard the saying, but like winners wake up with a different view on the day than not necessarily losers, but just non-competitive people. So to answer your question, I don't know if I'm ever going to lose that drive,
Right.
Like I find myself competing in a lot of things, like if it's figuring out math problems or a catering here, and I get myself into jams. Sometimes I overcommit. Like that's probably one of my worst traits. Saying no, like, is another big thing. Like mental health, like knowing when when's enough.
I got a book for you for that.
And I've learned to say no, but I also have 4 kids now, and I have to say no. Like if it wouldn't have been for Brandon, I might have said no to this, but we're on a personal level. So it's like, I need you, cool, got it, making it happen. I got to pick up kids after, like, there's just so many things that go on. But as a competitor, I think that helped me in the restaurant business. But like I said, I don't think you have to be an entrepreneur to be a competitor. I think it's all about the way you focus on your particular life.
That's quite amazing insight. My last question to you is, how do you identify the opportunities in a city that has these stereotypical negative reviews, and how do you overcome those assumptions of risk as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to winners win. I have such a unique story. I mean, I opened a restaurant when I was 25 years old. Like that doesn't happen. I walked on a football team and got a scholarship and then be a 3-year captain like that. I've caught a lot of breaks, but I also have done a lot of stuff right to put me in a position to catch a lot of breaks. So, good things like happen to people who do the right thing. And I don't know, man. I took a chance. I jumped. I had so much less to risk at 25. I think a lot of it is all about the risk. when I was 25 years old, I wasn't married. I had no kids. I had a master's degree. Like, if it didn't work, I could always do something else. That same opening a restaurant today at 40 with 4 kids is a much different risk. I have way more to juggle. So I think, just coming out the gate at 25 years old, not really caring the market. Honestly, if I'd have known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I was too young. I didn't, man, like, who doesn't need a sports bar in there at ULM? Right, let's do it, man. Like, let's go. And then at some point, I had 5 restaurants at one time. And I think my wife thought I was doing drugs, but I wasn't. But it got that competitive burn got in me, and I was like, let's keep on going, but and I've said no to a bunch of restaurants. I probably said no to 5 other restaurants that I had an opportunity to do, but I don't know. My advice is such a good question, man, because like, I don't care where you're at. Like, if you have a vision and you truly believe in it, like, it doesn't matter what the market says. Like, if you believe in it and you deep down inside feel that it's the right thing to do, go for it. Like, I mean, especially in y'all's age, man, like, this is the time to jump, like, take a chance, like, because what's going to happen is, like, you're going to kick the can down the road, and then there's going to be too much risk involved to take a chance on what you want to do. So, I mean, I'm the last dude you need to be talking to about taking a chance, or because I'm gonna tell you to do it every single day. Like, my brother opened his own financial advisor practice, and the same advice I gave him was like, go for it, man. Nobody's gonna run your business like you're gonna run your business. So just do it. That's what I say.
Very wise words. At this point, I'd like to open up the floor to some questions, and I see one that's being posted on the screen to Mr. Johnson. It's from Mr. AJ Brown or Miss AJ Brown. Do you find that there is some disparity amongst minorities about the subject of mental health? If so, how do you think we can lessen this?
Conversation is definitely disparity. In minorities, yeah. Conversation, educating, that's it. Education and conversation around mental health. More of that would help with that.
Does anyone have any questions to any of our distinguished speakers?
I've got one that I think encompass all 3. So I'd like to hear from Jim McEacharn and then Joey first before we hear from Chester. And I think it's pertinent for students because in the next 5, 7, 8 years, they'll be moving into that second role, right? That managerial role, that leadership role. So, and we're all asking, how can we model, how can we show in a proper way, mental health and leadership, right? But on the flip side of that, so many times I feel as leaders, we are pressured to perform and to give results, and then everything else is second nature, right? Hopefully we can be such good leaders that we'll get results, and then we can prioritize mental health. Is that your experience? Is that, and have you been able to fight that? You know what I'm saying? Because is it the chicken or the egg, right? Did the leader get there and then now they get to prioritize mental health?
And then they get to, yeah. Wow, you guys have got some awesome questions. I'm impressed. I really am.
I just see.
So I'll tell you, whenever you were talking, it's like, so if the leader goes home and works till 1 o'clock in the morning, oh gosh.
Well, yeah.
You know, yeah, that's happened a few times. So I try not to email others at night, so they don't necessarily know that. But gosh, where to go with that one? So I would often do some of these sessions for conferences on work-life balance, because that is something I struggle with a lot. I recognize that in me. And part of that is, I would say things like, you need to have a good timekeeper. You need to have that support structure, that person that serves as your timekeeper that says, you know what, you worked 3 straight weekends. I think you need to stay home this weekend or something. You need that person who's going to help you in those weaknesses that you self-identified. So you have to be self-aware. You have to understand who you are. And then you have to be willing to put yourself out there to others and say, I need people to help me with this. I had a faculty member one time who could not say no to anything. She was phenomenal. She did everything everyone ever asked her to do. Worked all the time. And I finally just said, you know what? Guess what? You can't accept anything anymore. You need some help. And when I did, they have to come ask me. I'll say no for you. So, all right. So that's 3 different things then, right? You got to be very self-aware. You got to know who you are. You got to get a support structure that's going to help you how you need help. And then you need to be the one that also offers that support and help to others. You see it, you've been through it, you see it. You can recognize it's coming, say, yeah, draw back some. You need that mental health break.
I mean, in my line, like you want to talk about, like I'm dealing with 2 totally different groups of people. Okay, so I have a 18 to 22-year-old, probably 95% of the time female, that is going to school to become a nurse or, you know, dental hygienist, like ready to, like big aspiration. And then my back of the house is a totally different quality, like just person. Like, I mean, hardworking people, but just never went to college, just, you know, caught some bad breaks. And I'm sitting here having to balance. So you want to talk about some mental health now, partner, like how to balance it. But it all comes down to what motivates people. So typically in my line, it's money. Like the servers are trying to make the most money that they can make in a 5-hour shift. And my back of the house is trying to get as much as they can per hour. Now, where I'm, certain restaurant owners are going to answer this question different, but over 14 years, we've built healthy restaurants, which allows me, I'm proud to say that I don't have a single cook that works for me that makes up under $11.25 an hour. Like I'm so like blessed to be able to do that. Because you got some people in this town that pay $8.25, $8.50, which is crazy. But it's all about building a team. So like I can't have a successful restaurant if it wasn't for a great serving staff and a great kitchen staff. So learning the balance, learning not to make a cut on a Tuesday night because we're a little slow, but I know we're going to be busy on Saturday. So I'm telling my fry guy, like, look, I could get those 3 extra easy hours because come Saturday, I'm going to need you. I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you on Saturday. So I'm like, what am I telling you if I cut you on Tuesday, but expect the max out of you on Saturday? So I think it's being able to realize not only with my mental health, but like, what am I doing to make sure that my employee, I'm the leader. Like, what am I doing to make sure that the mental health of my employees stays at 100? Because when you cut a guy on Tuesday night, but expect them to give you all on Saturday, that's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Are there any questions? Any other questions?
Repeat the question.
Basically, is how do you navigate the need to achieve results versus mental health? I mean, for me, sometimes my mental health is tied directly with my outcomes. I can't help it. It's just who I am. And so, you know, and then you add in the idea that there's people looking at it, right? Or you look around this table right here, bunch of hungry young men and women that are going to push and push and push themselves to get to that next spot. But once you get there, you know what I'm saying? Did you emulate mental health? Did you keep it at the top of your game, or did you let that slide because you think I can do it whenever I make that salary, or I can do that whenever I can?
I think that's what most people go from. That's just a thought. Like, I think most people go from, oh, I got to get the salary, oh, I got to get the position, oh, I got to get this. And then I'll get back to my mental health,
Mental
right?
and physical health.
Right, and physical health, yeah. For me, it was the mental health first. I literally couldn't get to the salary or the position or to this because my mental health was off. That makes sense, right? That's not everybody though. I think that there is a large group of people who can succeed in whatever field they're in and kind of, look, put on a mask and still show up like, oh, everything's okay. But look, somebody like me can see that, they look stressed or it's just something about them, right? So for me, it was the mental health component first. I started therapy and then became a therapist because of what therapy did for me in my individual life. So when I went to therapy, it was like a light bulb that went off personally. And I was like, like, I know everybody's not, like, I know a majority of people around me are not doing this. So that made me more interested in doing it so I can go and do things like this and talk about it. So for me, it was that way, but I don't think it goes that way.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I think you said the best thing that's out of everything that got said today was this. You can't be a leader and take care of things if you're not okay yourself. So,
You can do it for a certain amount of time,
but it's gonna
but
blow
it's
up.
gonna,
Mhm.
it's gonna blow up. I liked what she said about being a leader and seeing your team struggle and going and stepping in. Because most of us are not gonna come to the leader and say, hey, I need a break. So they're not gonna do that. So that is, I feel like, our responsibilities as leaders to gauge our staff or team, or whatever you call it, to see that. And because when you do that for someone, that makes them more endearing to you. Like, oh, you saw that I was struggling. So I'm gonna take this break, but when I come back, I'm about to go so hard for you because you showed that you care.
Do we have any other questions? I do have one question that I think are very, very critical for students. So we're in a very hyper competitive world that's being fueled by the internet. And so obviously entrepreneurship now is touching borders across the world. What traits and characteristics do you think students should be trying to embody whilst they're in school? Whether it's from the mental health aspect or to certifications before they get into this job market?
Mine I always say initiative, and maybe it's a little bit of drive, but initiative. What can you do? What can you do to wake up and be a winner today? What can you do to take the next step? What can you do to open that connection with the professor? What can you do to get yourself healthy? And all that boils down to initiative to me.
Word that came to my mind, the characteristic integrity. If you have that, then you'll get the rest. It'll come.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, I think you born with it. And there's people that 8 to 5, and we need a lot of 8 to 5ers. Like I mean, they make the world go round. But when you talk about talking to the people that want to be entrepreneurs and own their own businesses and start their own thing, like it's not easy. It's not easy to go out on your own. Nobody has your back. Like you better feel good about it. Now that was my point. Like if you get to that point where you feel so good about something, like, yeah, you want to do your market analysis and you want to make sure that you're at least setting yourself up to win, but you got to have that hustle. You got to have that unteachable. You got to have that unthinkable, boy. You got to have that drive that nothing's going to stop you, and you got to be fully committed. And like your boy David Goggins says, like, you're going to be misunderstood. You want to go get in the weight room. You're going to be misunderstood because everybody's going to think you're crazy, but you just got to be able to focus. That's probably the word, focus. If you're not focused, it's not going to work.
Thank you so much.
Now I'm going to turn it over to my boss, Dr. Valerie Fields, to close us on out for today and the semester. This will be our last one. For this semester, we'll come back in February. I think we talked today. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna miss our second Tuesday. Or it's gonna be a really busy Tuesday where we wouldn't probably be able to get together, but we'll be back in February, March, and April. in the spring.
And I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters on today. We really appreciate you coming and sharing with our students because that's very important. Because one day they will be sitting in the seats where you are. And that's what we're trying to do is cultivate all of them so that they will be enriched by having the opportunity to speak with and engage with individuals such as yourselves. So we know that we have been speaking from 3 components. Does anybody remember what those 3 components are? Anybody?
Academic, civic engagement, mental health.
Leadership.
Leadership? Okay,
Academics and,
So,
okay.
oh, sorry.
Civic engagement.
Civic engagement.
All right. So as we culminate our semester, those are the things that I want you to take with you. Are those 3 components. I want you to think about all of the speakers who have presented during this semester. And I want you to jot down those that really stood out to you. And let's try to help you make some contacts because that's what's going to be important. You know, and we'll see if they are able to bring you on board in whatever capacity you might want them to do. You know, you may just set up some time to maybe just go and touch bases with them or just talk to them because that's very important and we can help you start that now. Networking is very critical to success and you have to know how to do it, engage. And you also have to understand that a lot of these people are very, very busy individuals as you begin to speak with them. So sometimes you have to be patient in order to be able to reach them at the time that you may think that you do. So I just think that this has been a really successful day. What do you guys think? Does anybody, is there a student that just wants to give a little expression about what their views were from today? Anybody? Y'all just tell me.
Yeah, said they didn't want to
Okay, I
talk.
will. I think to have a great leader is a wonderful thing in a work environment. I work at Olive Garden and I feel like our team cannot be successful without having a good manager. An example, we have a manager that's always on us negatively. And so everyone gets there on a Saturday morning with a bad attitude. But once the good manager get there, that as long as you get your work done, it's okay. He wants everything done right, but he doesn't complain unless it's done wrong. So everybody has a good attitude, work flows smoothly with the servers, the kitchen, everyone has a good attitude. You're making more money, customers happy, and it's just a good day. So if the leaders have a good attitude, your team can have a good attitude and more business, more money, more everything.
yep.
Happy. Anybody else? Yes.
I would really like to recommend to a lot of my peers, mental health is so critical. We go to the gym to physically work out, work on the physical aspects of ourselves. We see a doctor for our internal organs. But what are we doing to stimulate our mental health? What are we doing to stimulate mental growth? And so oftentimes we think we can figure these situations out with ourselves, but we have resources at school. Sir Johnson's an example of that. A counseling center is an example of that. It may not necessarily be to figure out your solutions or figure out these situations you're in, but it may be just self-development. It may be things that you're not even aware of yourself that can then help you figure out your career, can help you figure out what characteristics do I exhibit and how does this tailor with me to the future.
And the other thing that comes along with that, I think the question that was in the chat was talking about the stigma or, you know, the conceptions that follow along when you are looking for those individuals to help you with mental health. And that was one of the reasons why we changed the name of the counseling center to self-development, then counseling, then special accommodation. Because the first thing is just as someone mentioned earlier, is about developing yourself and being aware of who you are, where you want to go and what you want to do. So I think that that's very important here. But then also knowing that you may need someone as a sounding board. That's how I look at it. You know, I have a sounding board that I have to sometimes go to, and I have to know when, and I have to know when not. And that's what kind of keeps you in that right space. So I do thank all of you all. I'm not going to extend your time on this evening. Yes, sir.
I have something to add before you close
Okay,
real quick.
all right.
Like 2 words that I felt from today's meeting really stuck out to me from all the speakers and everybody's question. First was self-reflection, and then the second was self-projection. And yeah, I know it rhymes a little bit. Took me a little while to think about it, but it encompasses, self first. And that's the only way we can get through not only life, but communication is starting with the temple before we reach out to others. And so with the self-reflection, and I say that, I've been battling, like trying to balance school, work, and then, home and my involvement, but I've regressed. I feel like, as a person, because I forgot about Carlos, what is he doing? How's he holding up? And then, the self-projection part, I've excelled at. Like, I'm in my program, I'm in my dream, I've done some stuff, an officer in one of our big RSOs, and I've also ran for a position that, is going to lead that organization. And so it's just the balance of self-reflection and self-projection of where we want to be, but where we are now matters of where we're going to be.
I want to add something real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is David Hernandez. Currently the elected vice president of the ULM Student Government Association. And I'm kind of building on to what Carlos here said a bit about us being as leaders and everything, and checking in with ourselves is highly important, especially if there's any other student leaders in the room, that we have sometimes when we get into these positions, and whenever I came into this position, we had giant shoes to fill and everything. And having all these eyes on us, or having expectations that the people before us left behind. But at the end of the day, we have to remember sometimes that we're still students too. And the people that are in our organizations are also students too. And whenever I got into this and everything, I would always be driving to do this and that and try to do this and that and that and that. But sometimes I would end up losing sight or losing my grasp with myself. And sometimes I had to slow down and just think about, oh, I'm still a student. Even though I'm vice president here, I'm still a student. And me over here feeling like I'm about to lose my mind doing this and that and this and that, and then trying to do this for somebody and trying to do that for somebody else. What kind of image am I reflecting onto these people that I'm supposedly leading? And one thing that stuck with me a lot is that I heard about when someone told me what a leader is. Being a leader is not, in the word says lead, but not leading people like you're above somebody, but being able to reflect with others. And one thing that I took away from this, and that I try to push every single time I'm in my office and everything, is that mental health is important. Mental health is this, we're students. At the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. You're not supposed to be stressing yourself out about this organization or this and that. We're supposed to be here to just enjoy our education, enjoy the experiences, enjoy everything like that. And being able to show people that are within my organization that it's okay to step away, but don't step away forever. Just step back and take a breath and come back when you're ready, and encourage others to do the same thing. So just to keep that fun and not that burnout that we might hear all the time.
So with that, I'm going to say that everyone has a really great rest of the semester. I think that everyone should have the opportunity to finish very strong, because I know you all have this competitive spirit of making all A's. I just know in my heart of hearts that that's where you are. And not anymore.
No, my goal is just passing now.
Okay. We're gonna motivate you to do better than just that. That's what we want. We want a little step above the just passing, okay? But as long as you pass, that's important, okay? But let's try to push a little bit, okay? Right. So I think that from this, there are lots of takeaways that you all have, and please don't forget to just jot down some notes. I see that Dr. Camille is on. Would you like to share anything, Dr. Camille, before we leave?
No, I think what, just a couple thoughts. I think for staff, it's important as, the Olive Garden example is a good one. You just have to, make sure that staff is in a good place. If, as a manager, you want to make sure that, the folks who are working with you are in a good mental spot there, and, why not support and encourage them? At ULM, go office to office. Some of these people are tucked away in office. They're not that visible. Let them know that what they're doing is important. Let them know that, they're an important part of the university, even though they might not be that visible. And also, so one part of it is to make sure that that you put people in a good place while they're here on campus. The other thing is, make sure they're in a good place when they're not working for you. Respect their weekend. Don't bother people after 11:30 on a Friday unless there's a true emergency. I mean, if in the case of IT, if there's a cyber attack, yeah, I'm going to be making a phone call and saying, we need to address this right away. But for the most part, let people clear their head over the weekend, and that goes along with good mental health. So I think those are the two main things I would say as a leader. Make sure that you put people in a good place while they're working for you, and make sure they're in a good place when they're not working for you, and respect the weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Camille. I have to disagree about the weekend, because that's when student affairs gets hot. So our weekends can't just end at 11:30, and most of the time, most everybody is still here past 11:30 on Fridays. And then there's Saturday, and then they may get a break on Sunday, just depending on what might be going on. So that's the only place where, we might have a little bit of a challenge. But I do strongly encourage all managers to work with their staff members to make sure that they get some time at some point, because we do have highs and lows, and so I hope that they take advantage of those things. But thank you so much for that. And guys, with that, thank you all for attending on today. I appreciate all of our leaders that have come today. And then I appreciate all of the staff members that have worked with everyone to make this possible, and a very great, successful Tuesday Ties with the ULM Guys. Thank you all so much. Have a good week. And then, have a good week, and then do well on your final.